Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, and we are here for an exciting 6-5 Insider podcast with my partner in crime, Daniel Newman. How are you?
Patrick, these Insider podcasts are some of my favorite. We get to talk to some very super smart people, and it's a great way to augment our weekly show where we do the 6 topics and do our deep analysis, Pat. But these Insider editions, so much fun. And this one is going to be another episode not to miss. So I'm in a good mood.
Absolutely. And this segment, or this Insider, is a rare opportunity for us to get a glimpse inside the brain of one of the key executives behind the Qualcomm Technology Licensing business. And I'm super excited about that. And I just can't wait to jump in.
Yeah, well, let's in a moment bring him on the show. But just kind of as a quick background for everybody out there, the Qualcomm Technology Licensing business is the part of Qualcomm that basically takes many of the company's innovations and then works with the device makers and OEMs out there and license so much of the technology that it has. And this is important to know because a lot of people think of Qualcomm as a chip company. But the licensing business is such an important part. It's a very, very big part of the business. But I don't want to steal the thunder. We're going to let John explain more of what it is. Just wanted everyone to know going in what they're about to hear. Let's bring our guest.
Awesome. Let's bring in John Hahn. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Daniel.
Absolutely.
The introduction. It was a really nice introduction.
Yeah, you want a better introduction? Listen, we do a pre-show call, and we learned a lot about you from the folks who handle you. You're handlers. You're a big shot. You have a handler, and they said you're an engineer who turned to law, which by the way, having practiced IP law for the bulk of your career with big names in the industry. Now you're managing this multi-billion-dollar IP business. Going to law school, working, raising a family at the same time. And you know what they told me too? You can pass a final exam in law, hand in a few patent reviews for work, and help your wife deliver a child in all one day. I mean, seriously, do you have a cape too?
You know what? It is true that I had my first child during first year of law school. So it is very true that I was quite busy. And at that time, I was also consulting for Ericsson as an engineer while going to law school. So I had a kid, I was working full time as a consultant, and I was going to law school. So it's busy times for sure. Yeah.
No, that is good. That is good. By the way, most of my family went that same track, but don't tell anybody that. In case. So, hey, let's jump right in here. And, I gave this interesting description on, what you do, kind of where you came from, but can you describe what you do at Qualcomm? I mean, I thought Qualcomm made wireless chips, and we're talking about intellectual property and licensing here. What's going on?
Yeah. So thank you for letting me have that introduction. So again, my name is John Hahn, but if we just step back, that is really not technically the correct pronunciation. My last name is Hahn, H-A-N. But for whatever reason, when I was growing up in the U.S., everybody called me John Hahn. So it just stuck. So I now go by John Hahn. Everybody calls me John Hahn. But I have to tell you, every time I say this, my father goes, "Your last name is Hahn." You're putting the family last name that lasted for 5,000 years. How can you do this?
Well, now I'm wondering, wait a second, what did I call him? What name did I give him here? But hey, listen, my family, like yours, is my number one critic. So I get it when I do these shows.
Exactly. So again, John Hahn, you can call me whatever. I'm the GM, general manager, responsible for Qualcomm licensing, technology licensing business, otherwise using the abbreviation QTL. That basically means that even though I have an engineering background and a law degree and being a lawyer by training, I'm really more of a businessman, talking with our customers and licensees out in the marketplace about how to share our patented technologies with those customers so that they can enable better products and services out in the market, and then negotiate and enter into a mutually beneficial patent license agreement. So that's what I do. So even though it sounds very different, QTL, technology licensing and all that, actually I have to admit that my day-to-day job is very similar to running a business unit. With the help of our engineers and inventors and working together with our patent department, we create this awesome patent portfolio. And you can consider it to be similar to like R&D units or product unit. And after we create those patent portfolios, which reflects our innovation, we then go out and put them together into a portfolio, and we go talk to our customers and talk to them about sharing those patented technologies so that they can use it and have access to it. And then we negotiate and enter into a license agreement, which is like a supply agreement, And according to that license agreement, we get compensated for the technology that we have shared with them. So even though we use different terminologies and different concepts, the model is very similar to how a business unit is run. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis.
So real quick, for our listeners and viewers, who are your customers for the IP?
Obviously, we would like to go talk to everybody out in the industry, but a big chunk of our customer base are the OEMs, as you described them, or the handset manufacturers. So the people who are making cellular handsets and devices are our main customers.
Got it.
Yeah, so I hear this, and we've worked together, advised and had a relationship with Qualcomm for a long time. But when I first learned about this, I think a lot of people are probably asking them this question. So are you saying that QTL, it's one of those companies that creates and buys patents and basically sues people and makes money that way? I think a lot of people out there would like to kind of understand what it really is.
Yeah. So let me try to unpack that a little bit because you had a lot there. If you're talking about a patent troll or an NPE, non-practicing entity, then we are actually the exactly opposite of those. Okay. Who we are very sophisticated and talented engineers and inventors. And we work on early research and development of fundamental and essential technology. So those are all homegrown, and we develop it, and we've been developing it for the last 30 years. After we develop this innovation and essential and fundamental technologies, unlike other business models, we don't keep those as a trade secret or proprietary. And we don't go out and try to commercialize it ourselves. For example, a lot of the consumers don't really know who Qualcomm is because we don't make handsets. We don't make base stations. We don't make tablets and TVs and laptops. We enable them, right? So we have two different business models. One is our product unit, the chipset that you referred to, where we actually come up with the best-in-class products, and we provide those to the OEM device makers so that they can enable and they can provide the best-in-class products to the consumers out in the marketplace. A good example of that is when 5G handsets were launched end of last year and beginning of this year, just about every OEM maker used our Snapdragon platform to enable those 5G devices coming out into the market. I have a Samsung foldable phone, which is a great 5G phone. It's a great product. But if you take the battery cover off, underneath the screen is a Snapdragon chipset, application processor that actually drives that phone and enables everything that phone is capable of doing. And that's what we provide on the product unit side. On the technology side, again, if we regardless of whether our customers buy our chipset or not, we are relatively chip agnostic. Whether they buy our components or not, we are still open and inclusive in the sense that we're willing to share our technology with implementers so that they have access to our innovation and technology. And in return, we ask for fair compensation. Obviously, because we have done the early research, we came up with all this technical solution, we got patent protection on it, and we're sharing it openly with them. We ask for fair compensation, and with that fair compensation, we plug it right back into R&D cycle again so that we can go to the next G innovation. As you guys probably know, G cycle happens every 10 years. Even though the consumers see 5G products now, we've been working at it for the last 10 years. The same thing as 4G, LTE, and same thing with WCDMA. And that's what we do. We take an enormous risk of doing early innovation, taking on that risk, because not every R&D actually effectuates into something that actually works. And then if it works, then we openly share with others by submitting those technical contributions to the standards. And then in return, we ask for fair return compensation so that we can go back and keep on doing what we do very best. So that's who we are. So if you're referring to us as an NP, I'll be very offended. That's not who we are.
Yeah, and Daniel and I both, we've written a lot about the company, but we like to sling it around here on the 6.5 Insider, and I appreciate you doing that. And I actually like to separate the word R&D. There's research, the R, and there's D, which is taking research and standards and then building products around that. And the thought, John, that somebody would want, after Qualcomm has spent billions of dollars in research, the thought that you would actually like to get paid for that work is just blows some people's minds. I'm being very sarcastic, of course, so you're supposed to smile here. But anyways, it is amazing that some companies kind of question that. It blows my mind.
Yeah, actually, if you look at any one particular individual or any one particular company, that is very short-sighted. And only thing they want to do is go out there and sell a couple of products and maximize their revenue and profit and be done with it. You know what? You may be right. There are some people who are questioning this. But if I look at the macro level and if I engage with our partner at the ecosystem, people actually do recognize and give us a lot of credit for being the R&D center for the ecosystem. They recognize that we do pure and early research, especially when it comes to cellular and radio spectrum technologies, and they appreciate that. And they know that we take an enormous risk in doing this. And then whatever the end result is, we share with them. And we ask them to compensate us accordingly so that we can keep on innovating on behalf of the ecosystem.
That's right.
And if the business people realize that they want to keep on doing this, not just today and tomorrow and next month, but they want to keep on doing this next year and the next cycle, people actually understand this and they support this actually.
Yeah, again, R meaning a lot riskier, and companies should be rewarded for the investments they make. So I have written, and Daniel have written a lot on the value of patent portfolios and how it gets measured. And when it comes to value in wireless, Qualcomm is more times than not on top. The interesting point is that Qualcomm doesn't have the most wireless patent by number. Can you help the audience decrypt this, the difference between just the number of patents versus the value of patents?
Sure. That is a very, very important and interesting topic, and I'm really glad that you asked that. We actually do have a very large size patent portfolio. We actually have a patent portfolio on a global basis that's over 140,000 patents and patent applications. And because we're not like other consumer electronic companies that has a bucket of patents on refrigerators and bucket of patents on TV and bucket of patents on automotive and whatnot, we are very focused on what we do. Having a patent portfolio of 140,000 patents and patent application, which is ever growing every day, is actually very, very big. Having said that, I think it will be a mistake for somebody to simplify the whole process and try to value one's portfolio based on number counting. Okay, I mean, we're all smart. I don't have to belabor this effort, but that's like me saying, Pat or Daniel, that 5 $1 bill in my pocket is the same value as 5 $100 bill in your pocket, and we should be treated the same. That doesn't work in real life, and all patents are not created equal. It doesn't work there either. I mean, I am disappointed when I see this third-party analytic report that constantly comes out and tries to do patent counting and patent stacking to try to put certain people as a lead of 5G or lead of 5G patent portfolio. And I think it's a real mistake to do that type of simple patent counting. That can't be the way you value intellectual property, Well,
I tell you what, John, I'll trade you the 5 1s in my pocket for the 500s in yours. In fact,
there you go.
Double down. I'll give you 10 ones.
If that was fair and reasonable, you would do that. And that is what we call FRAND. And we know that's not FRAND.
All right, let's talk about FRAND and let's become better FRANDs while we're here. But in all serious, right, part of the reason I think things get mistaken, the reason you end up with patent stacking and misinterpretations is this stuff's really complicated. And the smartest people on the planet aren't the people that are writing about it. I'm sorry, Pat. Sorry, me.
It's okay.
They're building this stuff. And oftentimes the people that are assessing it can't even begin to understand the complexities of what is 100 and a 10 and a 1. Also, though, this industry is loaded with terminology. And by the way, as IT guys that come out of the whole IT space, we know an acronym when we see one.
Yeah.
You just mentioned FRAND. I mean, there's one. What does FRAND even mean? Why is that such a commonly used term in the world that you live in?
Right. I'm going to pick up on your joke. You know, why can't we just be friends? Why can't we get along? Right? Yeah. So FRAND actually means it's abbreviation for fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory. So that's what FRAND means, especially when it comes to standard essential patents, SEPs. Right. So all it is a contractual commitment a patent holder makes when they share or contribute their technology to the standard. I mean, imagine a situation where somebody shares or contributes a technical solution, standard accepts it so that everybody's required to implement that particular technology. And then the patent holder goes out there and demands on unreasonable terms above and beyond what he or she should be entitled to, thereby preventing the ecosystem from actually utilizing the benefit of that patented technology, right? We don't want that. You know, Qualcomm certainly doesn't want that, okay? So what people are required to do, what companies are required to do is when you make technical contribution to standards, at the time you make the contribution or soon thereafter, when you realize that you may have a patent protection on the technical solution that you just submitted, we make a FRAND commitment. It's a commitment to the implementers, to the device makers. When the time comes for us to talk about licensing discussions, we will be committed to FRAND obligation. We will license you on fair and reasonable and non-discriminatory terms. So that's what FRAND means. However, one thing people overlook all the time is FRAND is a contractual obligation and it's a two-way street. Meaning, yes, the patent holder obviously has a FRAND obligation to offer terms that are FRAND to the implementers. That obviously is there, and we Qualcomm take that very, very seriously. But people seem to ignore or disregard the fact that implementers also have a FRAND obligation. When a FRAND offer has been made by the patent holder, the implementer likewise has to negotiate in good faith and enter into a license agreement compensating the patent holder accordingly. Otherwise, this doesn't work, right? So that's what FRAND means. It's a two-way street on the licensor side and licensee side. And having said that, you know, there's a lot of hype about FRAND and why it's not working when this is a problem. And I understand that there's some agenda or motivation for raising those issues. But again, I'm a business guy and I'm a market guy. So let's look at the market. Over 1.3 billion handsets are sold every year, okay? 1.3 billion handsets. The phones are getting more and more sophisticated and feature-rich, and phones are getting cheaper and cheaper. You can actually buy a 4G LTE phones on an average price of $150 now, okay? Phones are getting better, cheaper, faster, and there are more options. Companies like, some of the companies on a global basis, they're ranked number 3, number 4, number 5, did not exist 10 years ago, okay? So if there was such a huge FRAND problem, if there's a huge problem with sharing technology, there's a huge problem with preventing newcomers, high barrier to entry into the marketplace, it certainly is not being shown in the marketplace in the ecosystem right now. It's just the opposite, you know? So we actually think this FRAND system and the program as such is working pretty well.
So we can be friends.
We can be friends. We can all get along. Exactly.
John, that was probably the best explanation I've heard of being FRANDS that I've heard. But I have to ask, and you know, I don't want to crack myself up here, but if we can't be FRANDS, then do we get held up, or do we do the hold out? I mean, these are more terms that we need to understand. Can you explain and decrypt this for an audience who isn't maybe in your field of work?
Sure. So you must be referring to the hold up and hold out.
Yes.
That we're using, like you're holding up a bank, you know, for example. So to me, in a layman's term, hold up and hold out is a terminology that we use when somebody is misbehaving. Okay.
Okay,
so
makes sense.
So when a patent holder is misbehaving and is breaching his FRAND obligation and attempting to charge more than what he or she deserves, which reflects the true value of patent, then we call that a hold up, okay? If the implementers even though fair and reasonable term has been offered, is dragging their feet and they refuse to take a license so that the proper compensation is not timely done, then we call that a holdout. So if a misbehavior happens on the patent side, it's called holdup. And if misbehavior happens on the licensing side or the implementer side, it's holdout. Does that make sense?
It does. And who said IP law is dry? I mean, this is like tech is the Wild West, and we have Wild West terms here. I love this.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about holding up, right? Hold up, hey, no. But you know
what? If I may elaborate a little bit, the people on both sides of the camp have pointed fingers as to hold out is the real problem and hold up is the real problem.
Yeah.
But I go back to the economics and the market again. From a patent holder's point of view, there's really no incentive to hold up.
Yeah.
Because patent holders like ourselves really want to get paid as soon as possible so that we can inject that revenue back into our R&D and do what we do best. Okay. The litigation is simply too expensive, takes an awfully long time, is uncertain. And at the end of the day, it kind of impacts the relationship with our customers. So it's really not in our business model and not our preferred way of doing it, because a lot of our customers are repeat customers. We deal with them day in and day out all the time. So hold up, that just doesn't work. But hold out, on the other hand, I have seen some companies, not all, some companies using every trick in the toolbox to delay talking to you procedurally and substantively so that they can delay paying you as long as they can, hoping one day that they don't have to pay you because you give up, or they pay you less than what they owe you because they want to wear you down. So to me, hold out is where I'm really concerned about rather than hold up.
And of course, I would imagine a lot of the OEMs worry about hold up, and a lot of the innovators and patent holders worry about hold up. And we've watched over the years and covered very closely a number of Qualcomm's cases. And because when you deal with IP, you do become entangled in a lot of legal proceedings, whether that's with regulators and governing bodies or with other companies. And if you follow Qualcomm for a few years, you've seen that happen in all those different cases. And we could spend a whole show talking about them. By the way, we're going to have to take some time and talk about that, because there's some cases that you've been involved with I'd love to get your take on. Unfortunately, we do only have so much time here. And I did want to get to something else. So I want to talk a little bit about the positives here, which looks like very little holdout is actually going on right now. I was listening to the last earnings call, and the way I interpreted what I heard was that effectively Qualcomm has signed up every single smartphone. I want to say major, but I don't even know if it's every major, every single smartphone maker at this point with a 5G license. Is this a full sweep for Qualcomm on 5G?
It is definitely a full sweep as far as the market is concerned. I can't say that we signed up everybody because I may not know everybody out there. But we have negotiated, met with, and signed up all the major handset players on a global basis. And you have to imagine, let's see how this actually happened, okay? A lot of companies are coming up with their white papers and their statement papers and whatnot as to how they're number one in 5G and standard essential patents, especially doing patent counting and whatnot. And you see a lot of that these days. But what we Qualcomm did was 2 years ago, we decided to launch our 5G licensing program because 5G was going to get enabled soon. And 2 years ago, this is in the midst of all the regulatory issues that you were referring to. In the midst of all that, we ran out and started talking to everybody out there about 5G licensing. And we were able to sit down and enter into a FRAND license agreement. I know it sounds a little bit corny again because a FRAND is a term that people don't really hear every day. We were able to sign fair and reasonable license agreement with every major handset companies out there. And we did it very quietly, behind the scene, by talking with the relevant players and entering into a license agreement. So yes, I don't know how many companies can really say that we have a 5G licensing program where you tout that you're number one and here's something to show for it. We have something to show for it. We have a valuation. We have a program that every major handset companies out there have taken a look at and agreed with us. And they have said, I will sign a binding document that says, I will have access to your technology and I will compensate you accordingly. So that's very good. I'm very happy about that.
So Qualcomm, though, had previously been under some pretty intense scrutiny about how this was done. But in the end, and Daniel and I are following this, month to month, none of these jurisdictions actually asked you to make any changes to the way you structured your program. So first of all, is that accurate? And secondly, if it is, what is the secret to the success there?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. 2016, and for a few years thereafter, we had various different, lawsuits and regulatory reviews that we had to deal with. And you know what? We didn't duck the points. What we did was we went in and met with the relevant authorities and parties and explained and defended our program and business model in Korea, China, Taiwan, US, and so forth. And it was actually very encouraging to see that there was a misunderstanding. And they were able to not only understand, but appreciate what we were doing for the ecosystem, And then to the extent that we were not able to change a judge's point of view, like the district court here in California, we were very happy when the Ninth Circuit Court came out and completely reversed that decision, saying there was nothing anti-competitive about what Qualcomm was doing. I think the term they said was it was super competitive or hyper competitive. So yes, it took some time, but we were able to work it out because we believe in our business model and we actually believe in what we do. And we have the credibility that the industry ecosystem players recognize. Otherwise, it would not be done.
Right.
So, we have a few minutes left, and I love to kind of consider the future, and if possible, John, in some realistic terms, meaning, yes, we all want to spend some time on Mars, and I know there's some people working on getting us there, but probably not in any of our lifetimes. But you mentioned, decade after decade, there are these big waves. We're hearing about full autonomous vehicles. 5G is going to be key to that. We're hearing about smarter, more intelligent cities, buildings, PCs, always connected, IoT. 5G is behind so much of this, but is 5G kind of like, are we at the old news stage yet? Is this it? I mean, and if it is, then what's next?
Yeah. Well, obviously, somebody like Alex Kutushin over at our QTT side will be much more, capable of answering this question for you. But from my perspective, 5G is not done. It's actually only starting. Okay. 5G is accelerating at a very fast pace, unlike 4G, which took some time ramping up. In 2021, we are already estimating that over 500 million 5G handsets will be sold. 500 million in 2021. And the 5G handsets started coming out to the market for the first time last year. Next year, that number will increase to 750 million units. Because the emerging market, not only North America, Europe, and Japan, and Korea, but emerging markets, including China, are adopting 5G faster than they did on the 4G adoption. So we have just seen the beginning of the 5G and its benefit. And unlike 4G, 5G application is not just limited to handset. And, we all talk about digital transformation and what happened and whether it got accelerated because of pandemic and COVID and all that stuff. But one thing is very clear. 5G is not just handset. You're looking at application and the usage outside of the handset capability. And that's because of, fiber-like data speed, and the low latency so that you could do things like remote surgery, which was not possible because latency was not there to support it. Much more consistency and secure performance and a massive capacity for unlimited data. So that it's not only 5G handsets, but the robots and industrial IoTs and stuff like that will take benefit of it. So I think it's only beginning, and we will see how this thing plays out. And we're very excited about what vertical areas the 5G is going to go apply. But you mentioned 5G cars, and not many people know this, but we QTL also have had a auto connected licensing for the last 10 years or over 10 years. So if you have a car, your car probably already has a 4G telematic unit in it and has connectivity that's licensed by Qualcomm. Okay. Now I'm going to vent here a little bit. I go to these conferences And people talk about, oh my God, the FRAND is not working. And if you don't contain FRAND, the patent holder is going to charge a percentage of a $100,000 car. How could that be? It's all nonsense, you know? I mean, I even heard somebody says, if a FRAND doesn't get contained, they're going to charge a percentage of the building that's connected. It's a ludicrous argument, okay? Our 5G auto licensing, including 5G single mode, multi-mode for autonomous driving and CV2X, has already been launched well over a year ago. We have already made good progress signing up a lot of licensees in the auto industry. And I can't disclose a number because we haven't made it public yet. But our 5G royalty rate in connected car area is a single-digit dollar per vehicle.
Right.
If you want to understand how much we ask for a fair compensation of all of our connected technology in vehicle, just go to Uber and type in where's the nearest coffee shop within a 3-mile radius of your house and see how much they charge you. What we charge one time per vehicle is less than that amount.
John, I still remember getting in fights with people on Twitter about the cost of the licensing that goes into an iPhone. I said, you know, that little white box that you use, that you plug in to keep your constant obsession of being connected on, they charge less than that per device. So Apple may be charging $1,500 to you for a phone, but a lot of that intelligence costs well less than that power supply that you're using. So
you don't even have to go to power supply. The case that surrounds, the plastic case that surrounds the iPhone is probably more expensive than what we do. You know? Yeah.
What a great way to end it. I love, and I saw the articles on the 5G auto licensing and my head almost exploded, but it was like, I understand this because, you know, this is a tough area to explain to somebody who's not in here. And John, I want to thank you for coming on the 6.5 Insider, because essentially what you've done is you've made it, you've educated, made it easier for people who aren't the engineer to a lawyer to a business leader like yourself to figure this out. And what I'm hoping is an appreciation for what QTL does a big term. You know, nobody is forcing the company to spend billions in research, risky research out there with no clear line of sight to a product. That's your decision. And I think the world is better because of it, John. So thank you for coming on here. And hopefully if we haven't scared you away, you will come back again.
Hey, invite me back. I love talking to you guys. It was fun, you know, so anytime, please.
Thanks. Whew. I love it. IP, baby.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, Pat. The story there at the end about the ride to the coffee shop. I mean, these small dollar figures that go in, but make such an exponential difference in terms of how our devices work, how these devices function, the things we're able to do from generation to generation, Pat, and the fact that we basically have a smart supercomputer in our pocket is based upon companies that are doing the big R, not just the D. And so you said that really well. I hope the world listened when you said the companies that make those big bets 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line deserve to be well compensated for bringing that kind of innovation and taking that kind of risk. Because you spend that money and it goes wrong, Pat, you're out of business.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And the other thing is, nobody forces companies to actually create patents, because when you do create patents, you're actually giving your IP and you're showing it to the world in how it's done. And that in itself is a risk. And sometimes we think that everybody has patents, but they don't, because patents shows your secrets to everybody. So great show, Daniel.
Absolutely. Well, thank you to the team at Qualcomm that secured Mr. John Hahn to join us today. It was really great to hear from him. What a story. What a background. Of course, you go from engineering to law school to that perfect blend of the two in the licensing business, Pat. So for this episode and for this edition of the 6.5 Insider, we got to say goodbye, but hit that subscribe button, tune in, join us for more episodes of our weekly show, and also for more Insider editions. But for now, we got to go. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.